G'day guys, Luke from Defiant Mods. This is the build guide for the Ontos Blaster, a Springer by Ungineering. Let's get into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you get your kit and print your parts is assemble your pusher rod and put your pusher on. That's a pretty simple task. That's basically just one screw in the top, one screw on the side, and that holds your pusher. At the moment I'm running a TPU style pusher just to test. I'm using a dual O-ring with a slightly different back to it. What you'll get in your kit if you print it, the standard files would be that. Same process goes on the same. The blaster itself today will be the $1.50 variant of the Ontos. It's a little bit different, but the assembly is pretty much exactly the same. So once that's assembled, you're going to want to put that onto your priming block, and that will bolt on like so. On the priming block, you'll put your 4 bearings. That'll be in your BOM. You'll see what these are. These are a simple bearing. All the nuts that you'll use in this project and bolts are M3. The bolts will be M3 by 12. Everything is M3 by 12. There's no other shorter or longer one in the kit. And if you're using a kit from me, you'll get 2 different sets of screws in it. But if you're using just a kit recommended from Ungineering, you'll get 1 set of screws in it. So it's a very simple setup for the priming block. I usually put a little dab of super glue on the threads just before I thread them in to hold them in place. Ungineering has supplied, I don't know if you can see in there, there's a little keyway in there. You can drop a dollop of glue in there if you like at the end of it. I just find it's a little bit easier to do that. And that's basically all you got to do, and you'll repeat that 4 times around the block and you'll end up with this one. Remembering this one is the $1.50 one, so it's a slightly shorter block than the original block. Once you get these on, which I've pre-done and glued, you want to attach your pusher rod. You'll want to insert one of your M3 nuts into the top here, and then basically it's just a matter of dropping your M3 in there. On this one you'll come in from the front end like so to get it in. Because it's shorter, there's not quite as much room, so you'll find that you have to come in from the front with your driver, and he's put a hole through the front. On the normal one you'll just be able to come straight in from the top. You'll be able to come straight in from the top and make it work that way. So not too tight, remembering what you're dealing with here. That's as rigid as you're ever going to need. It's a very, very strong unit. Once that's complete, put that aside. The next thing you're going to want to do is assemble your plunger and plunger head. Once again, I'm running a TPU plunger head. The whole idea of the TPU for me is to quieten the blaster down. You sort of have to run the hard plastic on the back, because this is where the catch holds the tube back under spring load. So to have this in TPU as well kind of makes that job a little bit difficult. But this is pretty simple. Once again, just pop another screw in there and then screw those 2 parts together. All the O-rings in this, there's 2 styles of O-rings. You basically will get sort of 2 sets. You get a small one that'll go around the end of the pusher, and then the larger one that'll go on. The specs are also in the BOM that you'll find on printables. Not too tight again. Remember, you're going into plastic. If you do print these yourself, I usually put a dab of glue under that. I'll usually put a little drop of Gorilla Glue under there just to secure that. So that's pretty much done. Your O-rings on, put that aside. So the first part we'll actually work on will be the back half of the blaster, so the back section of the blaster. So that comes in 2 pieces. The first thing you're going to want to do is go around and add in 1, 2 M3 nuts, and then put a couple of screws in there just to keep them located, because what will happen is they're quite loose in here and they will fall out and it gets really annoying. So pop in a couple of nuts just to secure it, and you're going to want to screw in your spring rest at the back. So this is the section that holds the spring catch in. So it locks into there. It's your locking mech there. Once you've got that all sorted, put one side aside. Just be working on this side first, because this is the side that holds everything in place. You'll get your trigger. There's a few different styles of trigger. You can pick what trigger you want to run. There's slightly longer ones, hair triggers, not so hairy triggers, all sorts of things up there. That's got a little lip on it. I tend to just file just the back ends of these off. You can run a little bit of lube in here if you like. Mine seems to be gliding quite nice, but if you feel a bit of roughness in there, add it in. So there's 2 ways you can attach this. You can attach it with bungee cord, which is really simple. I like the bungee cord. Usually comes supplied in a kit, or you can just buy it from anywhere, Amazon, anywhere. Office Works in Sydney or Australia, from Australia. So the idea with this is that will be your trigger return. So you want to stretch that and have that, so that becomes your trigger return. What I usually find when I'm doing it in this format is I'll tie my knot roughly here at the end of this trigger, because then that's your locking and then that's your catch. But for this one today, I'm actually going to run a spring. Since there's 2 options to do it, I like the spring. So the spring goes into that little hole there, and there's another little hole here. They're decent holes too, so the spring will rest in there. So basically pop it in there, pop it in the little hole down there, and sit that in, and that sits in, and there you go. That's simple and it works. The next thing you're going to want to do is put in your spring catch. Again, there's 2 different styles of spring catches. There's one that works with the elastic cord again, and the elastic cord is tied in knots at each end, and it's popped into here and here, and then that will sit in there, and it will be the return spring for the pusher if you run it that way, as you can see. So that's the return spring. Once again, I'm going to go with the spring option today. So basically you just grab your spring. This one's got a keyed and a notch to hold the spring in place, so it sits like that. It'll go over the back of your trigger, and that's your little spring rest. So you can pop your spring back on there. There's a couple of ways you can do this. There's no right or wrong way. It's like actually building the blaster itself. There's no right or wrong way to actually build the blaster. You can start at the front end or the back end. At this moment, I'm kind of wishing I went with the other way with the bungee cord. But that's it. That's all you're looking to do, and that's your trigger held in place. This can get a bit finicky until it's all sitting in and resting in there nice and neat. Okay, pop that back in there, and that's that. Stay. So once that's done, you can set that aside. Just pop that over there. The next thing I'd probably want to work on is popping your tube in. That should be a 150mm tube. Specs are also online. I've pre-lubed mine up. It's getting a bit hairy now. So once that's pre-lubed, that can sit in there like that, and then you can pop on your back section. And once again, you've added in your nut and your thing just to hold that all in place. So the idea is just to get that together as quickly as possible. So I've got a couple of screws just sitting in there. You can use any of these just to hold it all in place. So that's all you're looking to really do. Test that that's working smooth, of course, because you don't want that binding up before you do all this up and lock it all together. I've got a couple of nuts resting in there right now, so I'll work with those. I will quickly show you a little tip that I use to get those nuts sitting in place. So if we've got one, so say we've got one, this one at the back that hasn't got a nut in there, what I do is I keep a longer one of these, an M3. It doesn't have to be that long. You don't have to put a bit of red tape on the end. I do because I tend to lose these a lot. And what you're going to do is, whether you're a lefty or a righty, you'll work it out. Pop that in there, push it in, and then come this side with your screw. And then as you wind on, wind off with the other one. So you're basically just turning them both in the same direction, and at some point they'll bite. So that one's out and that one's biting on that screw, and that's it. Quick little tip. So that's pretty good right now. I'm happy with that. I'll just get that one done up quickly. This stage you can remove these because that's all secure. I'll leave that in for now. Put in your back bolt, back screw nut, screw, M3. The socket heads for these are metric 2.5, and I run a 2, and I'll show you why I run a 2 in a minute. I'll explain that again. I should have explained that before. So I'm happy with that. That's good. I can set that aside and come to the middle part. So the middle part, the only thing you have to pre-install in this is the breech, and there are a couple of nuts that go up here, and you want to get these in now because it's a bit of a pain to do later. So screw your breech in. There's one on that side, there'll be one on this side, and that works as your lock-in device just before you close it all up. So while we've got it here, we'll grab another nut, and we'll grab our top pick rail. Very generous piece of Picatinny rail, as you can see. So you can see why this is a little bit easier to do now rather than do it later. Probably noticing that I've mixed my whites up. I'm using 2 different color whites, so I'll probably come back to this again down the track. So once that's like that, you're happy with that, you can bring back the back half now and set it there or thereabouts, and we'll work on the mag release. So the mag release, there is no spring option for this. You have to run the bungee cord. What I usually find is a good rule of thumb is I tie it just above the end, much like I was showing you with the trigger, just past the end, and that's enough. So what we do is we're just going to poke that in there. It's bungee cord, so it will press and push in. Once you get it thereabouts, feed it back over, around, and then that will sit like that for you. And that's that sort of done and dusted. Make sure that's pushed in, just so it doesn't get in the way when you're screwing all that together. Like I said, a little tip on these is just put a dab of super glue on these ties when you tie them. If you've got thinner cord, you can do a double knot, and that usually secures them. What I find is a single knot's plenty on the thicker cords. I think if you're running off the BOM, you're going to be running 2mm or 2.5, I can't remember now, or 1.8mm cord. I like the thicker cord. I prefer the feel of it. It's got more of a stiffer pullback on it, so I always run this cord. So with that done, you can then pop back in, or actually what we'll do is bring the prime block over and we'll move on to the front end. The only prep you've got to do for the front end is the ball dent, and the ball dent's basically there to help hold the prime block in place. What I usually do, or what I always do, is I put a little groove in there. I file a little groove at the front of that to ease it onto the prime block, because I can find that can be a bit heavy to push back to get it to lock in on that ball dent, which is annoying when you're pushing back. You'll see there's nothing on that, so this will be even sort of harder to get back onto that, and you can hear it. So a little bit of grease, a little bit of a file. So once that's out, pop your front in, This front's a little different to the standard one. This is a lock-in front, and it's designed to lock the barrel inside the blaster. So the whole idea of the $150 version of the Ontos is to get the barrel inside the blaster on a shorter front end to lower frame rates, FPS, frame rates, how's that? So to lower your FPS. So once that's there, you can actually just juggle these around, and we can add in the front screw. So before you do that, you're going to want to pop in 2 M3 nuts here and just in the front there, and that allows you to attach, coming back on the angle, these 2 front bits. And as long as those nuts are pressed right down into place, this always works 100%. This they just screw together. That's it. So that's together. So we can come back to that, pop back in our prime block and pusher rod assembly, and that's it. That's pretty much it. Bit more lube inside your tube, not too much. You don't want to be firing oil the first 50 shots. Pop in the plunger tube. Now I run a slightly oversized O-ring on these because of the shrinkage factor on the TPU blocks. But as you can see, it does get a little bit tight in there, and I don't mind a slightly tighter pusher. I'm cool with that. Once that's done, just a little bit on around that, and that will slide in. So once those 2 are together, you can pop on your middle section, which is that one. Again, you want to put your nut up in there, don't forget that. And then that will just clip onto there, and then because you've got that breech in place, you just need 1 screw to hold that in place. Then if you're so inclined, you can add your other front section on as well. I find that it's best to come in on the angle like this. Once that's in, again, these always just go in like butter. They're beautiful. So the next thing I'd probably do is I'd add a screw to the back to get this section attached. Now the beauty about this is you have 3 takedown screws. So you have 1, 2, and 3. This is a binding screw for the middle section. It's got nothing to do with the putting together of the blaster. And once you loosen those or take them out, that's how you access the front plunger and rear of the blaster. So if you need to take down, replace O-rings, do any maintenance, swap your, say you want to swap your pusher out, this is how you'll do it. And it really is just that simple. It's as simple as you get. I know it's not an SBL2 with 2 takedown pins, but it's not far off it. And it works just as well, and it's a really easy, it's a brilliant setup actually. The Ontos really shows the way forward for how blasters need to be built from now on. The old days of printing blasters in sections and then using rods and bars and crap to hold those sections together, it's gone. This just shows the new way. So once again, flip it over. These all come in on cross angles, so you can see the angle this one's going in on. This is just taking a while to thread through the plastic. Once it's through, it'll catch that nut that's already pre-installed in there and pull that together. So there it is. So, you know, like that's one nut at the back, and the thing already feels rock solid. Let's get some more in there. We've got one here, which will be that one there. That one needs a nut, so we'll go back to our little friend here, our little helper. I've sent kits to my friends, and when I send my friends a kit, I always supply one of these as a little friendly helper. And now they'll have a video they can watch, so they actually know what it's there for. Once again, put it in and just turn. Geez, I hope this is coming up on camera all right, guys. So it's actually bound because I've gone in too fast, so just loosen that off, turn that, that comes out, and this will keep turning. And that's got the nut right now. That's pretty much the back half done. That needs one, but it's no big deal. We'll keep moving forward. We got nuts on those, which is good. There's another one here. What I'd like to see eventually is for this to all be one piece. So one side to be one piece, the other side to be the other piece, and then there's just 10 screws that just clamp the two sides together. Rather than the sandwich section's great, but I'd rather just have two complete sides that marry up and bolt together. So we're working on that. We get one up here. You'll have to do that trick for everyone. This blaster was pre-built and taken apart to make sure everything would sort of go smoothly here. So a lot of those nuts have stayed in there. There are little hole fillers you can print and put in these. I've never done one. I've never bothered to do it. I think I tried once and it just proved to be a massive pain in the arse, so I never did it again. Plenty of files on printables, plenty of remixes coming down for it. Triggers, pushers, top Picatinny rails, mag releases. That's my one there. I've added a little thumb. My finger was getting a bit sore on the other one, so I added a little bit there for the back of your finger. Little comfy groove. Looks like we only need one of these at the front here now. Excuse my awkward looking positioning while I do this. I think the rest of these all have nuts, so all we've got to do, pop screws in. It's not a long build, it's really not. If you've got all your gear there and you're prepared, again, for the most part you're either going to need a 2.5 or a 2 or both in your socket heads. You can build this with hardware screws, like you can go and get Phillips head screws and build it. But the Ontos deserves better. It's a fantastic blaster, so make sure you get quality parts. All the parts I'm using here today are stainless steel 316. There's not one cheap part on here. So that's all nice and smooth. The catch is working, I can see that. That's coming back, the ball dent's working, so everything's doing as it should. I suppose the next thing we can do is put the handle on. I have printed TPU handles for it. Some like it, some don't. I quite like it. Others don't feel confidence with the slight amount of movement that you get with the TPU handle. That's just your choice. By all means, do it if you want to. For this one, I'll leave it. PLA. This is all PLA. These are indoor blasters. There's a matching set. They'll be taken outside occasionally, so there's no need to be messing around with PETG or ASA on these. I have done ASA, I have done PETG, and I've also done ABS for the Ontos. The ABS probably being my preferred, because it feels good. I like the Gavin Fuzzy Prime. You can run whatever one you want. The silly one's quite nice, as it's a key. that goes in there to hold it all together. I like this one. If you're going to run this one in the kit, I can supply, or I usually add in two, I think these are M5 by 30s, and a couple of nylocks. Just means you're going to have a slightly larger socket head screw to get these on. I've built so many of these now. I've done the long toss. There's a long toss, which is basically a long dart version of this, which has a larger body in the middle. There's an XL version, which I've just finally completed, which fires above 400 FPS. These are indoor ones for kids, so these will be running on seagull springs, and probably hit the 150 cap around there, maybe up to 170, which isn't too deadly for indoor and kids. Okay, with that done, we can enter the barrel. So these barrels are cut pretty short and they stay within the whole blaster, and they'll go in like that. I chamfer both ends on these for the sake of it, and this locks it in place. So it's imperative that your blaster, that your internal barrel is cut just right, because that holds the barrel in place in there and doesn't allow it to move. Just check that your O-rings are coming in and sealing in the back, and they are. It's a nice seal, that. It's a very nice seal. Actually, you can test it. I won't test that now, but you can test it before you lock that in. The next thing we can do is pop in the springs. There's a few options. They will run the full Harrier springs, which is the 1.6 by 300. You can get the similar spring, but with more coils on it, through AliExpress for a couple of bucks. This is the smaller, thinner coiled. I think this is 1.6 at 250. 1.4 at 250. That end in first. That will go in, push that down. This is your spring rest and catch, and that's got little things. You'll put that together, a dab of glue that prints in two parts. That goes in and then simply locks into place on the back. It's feeling pretty good. Still missed a couple of screws, but for the most part, that's done and dusted. Pop your rear stock on. I've done a TPU one for this one. I like the feel of the TPU. It doesn't flex too much. It holds up and it sits there. And there it is, folks. That is your